You are not broke. You are trapped in the wrong paradigm. There is a quiet moment, so subtle that most people miss it. When life begins to repeat itself, you wake up, move through your day, think the same thoughts, feel the same emotions. And by the time the night arrives, even though you're exhausted, something inside you whispers the truth. Nothing really changed. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months. And somewhere along the way, you start to believe a story that sounds logical, reasonable, even justified. I just need more money. But what if that's not the truth? What if the problem was never the absence of money, but the presence of a pattern? What if, at this very moment, you are not lacking resources, not lacking opportunity, not lacking intelligence, but you are trapped inside an invisible framework, a paradigm, a mental program that silently dictates how far you go, how much you earn, and what you believe is possible for your life. Because money has never been the cause. Money is the effect, and the cause has always been internal. Napoleon Hill once said that whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Earl Nightingale echoed that we become what we think about. And Bob Proctor made it unmistakably clear. You don't earn money by what you do. You earn money by what you become. And that realization changes everything, because it forces you to confront a truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. You are not experiencing life as it is. You are experiencing life as you are. Your results, your income, your opportunities, your limitations, they are not random. They are reflections of your identity, your beliefs, your internal programming. And that programming was not consciously chosen. It was inherited, conditioned, installed from childhood, through repetition, through environment, through the quiet influence of people who never questioned their own limitations. You were taught to be realistic. To play safe. To not want too much. To accept what is available. To believe that success is difficult, that money requires struggle, that abundance is reserved for a select few. And slowly, without realizing it, you began to operate within those invisible boundaries, like a powerful machine, running on outdated code. And no matter how hard you try to change your results, if the code remains the same, the output remains the same. This is why people work harder, but stay stuck. Why they learn more, but earn the same. Why they start strong, but fall back into old habits, because they are trying to create a new life with an old identity. And that will never work, because the outer world will always mirror the inner world. If there is doubt within you, there will be hesitation in your actions. If there is fear within you, there will be resistance in your progress. If there is limitation within you, there will be evidence of limitation around you. This is not punishment. This is law. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and your life is painted by the same brush. Thoughts are not harmless. They are creative. They are formative. They shape perception, influence behavior, and ultimately construct reality. Every repeated thought becomes a belief. Every belief becomes a filter, and every filter determines what you see, what you pursue, and what you allow yourself to receive. So if you have been conditioned to believe that money is scarce, you will unconsciously avoid opportunities that contradict that belief. If you believe that success requires exhaustion, you will associate growth with pain and resist it. If you believe you are not enough, you will sabotage moments that could prove otherwise. And then you will look at your life and say, see, it doesn't work. But it is working. Perfectly. According to your paradigm. And this is where transformation begins. Not when you earn more, not when circumstances improve dot, but when awareness enters the equation. Because the moment you become aware of the pattern, you are no longer controlled by it dot. You begin to observe your thoughts instead of obeying them. You begin to question beliefs instead of defending them dot. You begin to separate who you are from what you are taught to be dot. And in that space between awareness and choice, power is born. Because now you can decide what stays, decide what goes, decide who you become. And becoming is everything. Because your results are not determined by what you want. They are determined by what you are aligned with. You may want abundance, but if your identity is rooted in scarcity, you will repel what you desire. You may want growth, but if your mindset is built on fear, you will resist the very actions that create it dot. So the question is not, what do you want? The question is, who must you become to receive it? And this question demands honesty dot. It demands responsibility dot. It demands that you stop looking outward and start looking inward, because the life you want is not hidden dot. It is not distant, that it is not reserved for someone else. Dot is waiting on the other side of your transformation dot. And transformation is not comfortable dot. It requires you to confront yourself dot, to challenge habits that feel natural but are destructive dot, to walk away from patterns that once protected you but now limit you dot, to step into uncertainty without guarantees. But understand this, the discomfort you avoid today becomes the regret you carry tomorrow dot, and the courage you choose today becomes the life you live tomorrow dot. There is no neutral ground. You are either expanding or contracting, evolving or repeating dot. Becoming or remaining dot. And remaining has a cost far greater than failure, because failure teaches, failure refines, failure redirects, but staying the same, that slowly erodes your potential dot. It numbs your ambition dot. It convinces you that average is acceptable, and you are not built for average dot. You are not designed to survive. You are designed to create dot, to expand dot, to express something greater than what you have been settling for. But that expression requires discipline, because discipline is the bridge between vision and reality dot. It is what keeps you moving when emotion fades dot. It is what anchors your actions when motivation disappears dot. It is what transforms intention into consistency, and consistency into identity dot. And identity is destiny dot, because once you become the type of person who shows up, who follows through, who does what needs to be done regardless of how it feels, your results are no longer uncertain dot. They are inevitable. But discipline alone is not enough, that it must be guided by vision, because effort without direction leads to frustration. You need clarity, clarity of where you are going, clarity of who you are becoming, clarity of what you refuse to accept anymore, because clarity eliminates hesitation, and hesitation kills momentum dot. When you see clearly, you act decisively. When you act decisively, you build confidence dot, and confidence compounds dot, not from success alone, but from self-trust dot, from proving to yourself again and again that you will do what you said you would do. And that is where real power begins, not in external validation, not in temporary results dot, but in internal certainty, a certainty that does not depend on circumstances, a certainty that is built through action, through repetition, through alignment dot. And when you reach that level, you stop reacting to life dot, and you start creating it, because now you are no longer operating from your past. You are operating from intention dot, from vision dot, from choice. And choice changes everything, because the moment you choose consciously, you interrupt the cycle, you break the pattern, You rewrite the code, and from that moment forward, nothing has to stay the same. Not your income, not your opportunities. Not your reality, because you changed the source. And when the source changes, the effect must follow. So no, you are not broke. You are not behind. You are not lacking. You are simply operating within a paradigm that was never designed for the life you want to live. But now, you see it. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And that is the beginning of everything. And once that awareness settles in, once it stops being just an idea and becomes a realization you can feel in your chest, something inside you begins to shift. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But deeply. You start to notice the patterns that once controlled you. You catch yourself thinking small. And for the first time, you don't automatically agree with it. You feel the hesitation. But instead of obeying it, you observe it. And in that moment, something powerful happens. You create space. Space between stimulus and response. Space between fear and action. Space between who you were and who you are becoming. And in that space lies freedom. Because for most of your life, you have been reacting to circumstances, reacting to emotions, reacting to a script that was written long before you ever questioned it. But now, you are no longer reacting. You are choosing. And choice is the most powerful force you possess, because every transformation begins with a decision to stop accepting what you know. Longer want. A decision to think differently. To act differently. To show up differently, even when it feels unnatural, especially when it feels unnatural, because what feels natural is simply what you are used to. And if what you are used to has been producing results you no longer accept, then what feels natural is exactly what must change. This is where most people turn back, because the moment you begin to step outside of your familiar patterns, discomfort rises, doubt appears, your mind begins to whisper, "This isn't you. This is too much. Go back to what's safe." But understand this clearly. That voice is not your truth. It is your conditioning. It is the echo of your old paradigm trying to preserve itself, because your current identity, no matter how limited, is familiar, and the mind will always try to protect what is familiar, even if it is holding you back. So the question becomes, will you obey that voice? Or will you override it? Will you return to the known? Or will you step into the unknown? Because everything you want exists in the unknown. Growth is not found in repetition. Expansion is not found in comfort. The life you want is not waiting where you are. It is waiting where you have not yet gone. And getting there requires something that cannot be taught, only chosen. Courage. Not the loud kind, not the kind that announces itself, but the quiet kind, the kind that shows up in small decisions, the kind that chooses discipline over distraction. The kind that moves forward, even when there is no guarantee. Because courage is not about certainty. It is about commitment. Commitment to your vision. A commitment to your growth. A commitment to becoming someone you have never been before. And that commitment must be reinforced daily. Not occasionally. Not when you feel like it. Daily. Because your paradigm was not built in a day. And it will not be replaced in a day. It was built through repetition, and it must be rewritten the same way, through repetition, through consistency. Through deliberate, conscious action. Day after day. Thought after thought. Choice after choice. Until what once felt uncomfortable becomes natural. Until what once felt impossible becomes expected. Until the new identity becomes who you are. And that is the moment everything begins to accelerate. Because once your identity shifts, your standards rise. And when your standards rise, your actions change. And when your actions change, your results follow. Not because you are forcing them, but because you are aligned with them. And alignment is where power lives. Because when your thoughts, emotions, and actions move in the same direction, there is no internal conflict. There is no resistance. There is only momentum. And momentum is unstoppable. But to reach that point, you must be willing to let go. Let go of excuses. Let go of old stories. Let go of the version of you that kept settling. Because you cannot carry your old identity into a new reality. It won't fit. It won't function. It will collapse under the weight of what you are trying to build. So you release it. Not with regret, but with understanding. Because that version of you got you here, but it cannot take you there. And that is not failure. That is evolution. Evolution demands adaptation. It demands that you become flexible in your thinking, resilient in your actions. Open in your perspective. Because the path will not be straight. There will be setbacks, moments of uncertainty, times where progress feels slow or invisible. But those moments are not signs that you are off track. They are part of the track. They are the refinement process. The pressure that shapes you, the resistance that strengthens you, the contrast that clarifies what you truly want. And if you stay committed through those moments, if you refuse to quit, refuse to shrink, refuse to return, you develop something that cannot be taught. Resilience. And resilience is what separates those who wish from those who win. Because anyone can start, but only those who endure finish. And finishing is not about reaching an endpoint. It is about becoming the person who no longer stops. Who no longer retreats. Who no longer negotiates with doubt. Because at that level, you don't need motivation. You have identity. And identity sustains everything. It keeps you moving when things get hard. It keeps you focused when distractions appear. It keeps you grounded when success begins to show. Because now, you are not chasing results. You are expressing who you are. And that expression becomes your life. So understand this. You were never meant to struggle endlessly for money. You were never meant to live in limitation. You were never meant to question your worth. You were simply taught to think that way. And now, you are unlearning it. You are breaking the S pattern. You are stepping out of a paradigm that was never yours to begin with. And as you do, everything begins to change. Not overnight, but inevitably. Because once the internal shifts, the external cannot remain the same. It must adjust. It must align. It must reflect the new standard you have set. And that is where you begin to see it. Opportunities appear. Ideas expand. Confidence grows. Not because the world changed, but because you did. And that is the truth most people never realize. The world you experience is shaped by the mind you carry. So, carry a greater mind, a stronger mind, a disciplined mind, a focused mind, a mind that refuses to settle. And watch how your reality responds. Because it will. It always does. And when it does, you will look back at who used to be, and you won't feel regret. You will feel clarity. Clarity that you were never stuck. You were never lacking. You were never incapable. You were simply operating under a paradigm that limited your expression. But now, that paradigm is gone. And in its place is something far more powerful. A conscious identity, a chosen direction, a deliberate life. And from here, there is no going back. Only forward. only upward, only expansion. Because once you step into who you truly are, the only thing left to do is become more of it. And as you continue, something even deeper begins to unfold. You start to realize that this journey is not just about changing your results. It's about reclaiming your power. Power that was never taken from you. Only forgotten. Power that does not come from external circumstances, but from internal alignment. Because when your thoughts are aligned with your vision, and your actions are aligned with your thoughts, you enter a state that very few people ever experience. A state of certainty, not blind. Optimism. Not temporary motivation, but grounded, unshakable certainty. The kind that does not disappear when things get hard. The kind that does not depend on outcomes. The kind that remains even in the face of uncertainty. And that certainty becomes your foundation. Because when you are certain, you stop hesitating, you stop second-guessing. You stop waiting, and you start moving with intention. You start executing with clarity. You start living as if the outcome is already inevitable. And that changes everything, because most people act based on what they see, but creators act based on what they know. And what you know, at your deepest level, determines how you show up. If you know that your future is greater than your present, you stop reacting to temporary setbacks. You stop being shaken by short-term results. You stop measuring your progress by immediate feedback, because you understand that what you are building is bigger than what you can see right now. And that understanding creates patience, not passive waiting, but active patience. The kind that keeps moving, the kind that keeps building, the kind that keeps showing up, regardless of what is happening on the surface, because you are no longer attached to instant results. You are committed to long-term transformation, and long-term transformation requires something most people avoid: consistency without validation, doing the work without applause, showing up without recognition, continuing without reassurance. Because the truth is, there will be moments where no one notices your growth. No one acknowledges your effort. No one sees the discipline you are building behind the scenes. And in those moments, you will be tempted to slow down. To question yourself. To wonder if it's worth it. But this is where the real shift happens. Because when you continue, without needing to be seen, you prove something to yourself. You prove that you are not driven by approval. You are driven by purpose, and purpose is far more powerful. Because approval fades, attention shifts, but purpose sustains. It fuels you. It anchors you. It gives meaning to your actions, even when the results are not yet visible. And when your actions are fueled by purpose, you stop chasing success and you start embodying it. Because success is not a destination. It is a way of being, a way of thinking, a way of acting, a way of showing up every single day. And when you operate from that place, you no longer feel like you are trying to become successful. You feel like you already are. And your external world is simply catching up. And that feeling is powerful because it shifts your energy. It shifts your posture. It shifts the way you communicate, the way you decide, the way you lead your life. And people feel that. Opportunities respond to that, because you are no longer operating from lack. You are operating from identity. And identity is magnetic. It draws in what matches it. So when you become disciplined, you attract structure. When you become focused, you attract clarity. When you become abundant in your thinking, you attract opportunities that reflect that abundance. Not because of chance, but because of alignment. Because the world does not give you what you hope for. It gives you what you are prepared to receive. And preparation is internal. It is the work you do when no one is watching. It is the habits you build in silence. It is the standards you hold yourself to, even when it would be easier not to. And those standards define everything, because your standards determine your actions, your actions determine your results, and your results reinforce your identity. So if you want to change your life, raise your standards. Not once, not temporarily, but permanently. Decide what you no longer tolerate. Decide what you now expect from yourself, and then live by it. Without exception. Because every time you lower your standard, you weaken your identity. And every time you uphold it, you strengthen it. And strength builds confidence, real confidence, not the kind that comes from temporary success, but the kind that comes from knowing, I can trust myself. And when you can trust yourself, you become unstoppable, because there is no longer internal battle. No more hesitation. No more self-sabotage. Just clarity. Just action. Just movement. And movement creates progress. And progress creates momentum. And momentum transforms everything. But never forget this. The moment you begin to grow, you will also be tested, not by life being against you, but by life revealing whether you are ready. Because growth invites pressure. It invites responsibility. It invites situations that require you to operate at a higher level. And if you are not prepared, you will shrink back. But if you are ready, you will rise. And rising is a choice. A choice to stand firm when things get uncertain. A choice to stay aligned when distractions appear. A choice to keep going, even when it would be easier to stop. And that choice, repeated over time, creates mastery. Mastery of your mind, mastery of your emotions, mastery of your actions, and mastery is freedom. Because when you master yourself, no external situation can control you. No setback can define you. No failure can stop you. Because you understand, everything that happens is feedback. Everything that happens is part of the process. Everything that happens is either moving you forward or teaching you how to move forward. And when you adopt that perspective, you become resilient, not emotionally fragile, not easily shaken, but grounded. Adaptable. Focused. And that resilience is what carries you through, because the journey will challenge you. It will stretch you. It will push you beyond what you thought you could handle. But that is exactly what you need, because you are not here to stay the same. You are here to expand. And expansion requires pressure. It requires growth. It requires stepping into a version of yourself that feels unfamiliar, until it becomes natural. And when it becomes natural, you reach a level where everything shifts again. Where what once felt difficult becomes standard. Where what once felt impossible becomes expected. Where what once felt distant becomes your reality. And in that moment, you realize something profound. You were never chasing success. You were building yourself into someone who naturally attracts it. And that is the ultimate shift, because now you don't need to force outcomes. You don't need to chase opportunities. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. You simply continue becoming more disciplined. More focused, more aligned. More aware, more intentional. And as you become more, life reflects more. More opportunity. More abundance, more clarity, more growth, because that is the law. And you are now operating in harmony with it. So take a moment and recognize where you are, not where you used to be, not where you wish you were, but where you are right now. Aware, conscious, awake. And that awareness is your greatest asset, because from here, you can create anything. You can become anything. You can build this life that once felt impossible, not because it was given to you, but because you decided to become the person who could create it. And that decision was the moment everything changed. So now, there is nothing left to question, nothing left to doubt, nothing left to wait for. There is only one thing left to do. Continue thinking at a higher level. Continue acting with discipline. Continue aligning with your vision. Continue expanding your identity, because the path is clear, direction is set, and the version of you that you are becoming is already real. Now all that remains is for you to fully step into it. And when you do, you will understand completely. You are never without money. You are never without opportunity. You are never without potential. You are simply living inside a paradigm that could not support your greatness. But now, that paradigm is gone. And in its place is something far more powerful. A mind that is aware, a life that is intentional, a future that is created, not by chance, but by design. And that is where everything begins. Now go. And live like someone who knows exactly who they are becoming.